Every now and then we get asked, what's a good home defense firearm, especially for those that are looking to get a firearm for the first time? Well, a lot of folks will believe that a good home defense weapon and also for personal carry would be a handgun. Handguns are great for home defense. They're good for little truck guns. This is a Glock 43X. Now, the Glock 43X has decent capacity. You get that 10 round capacity. It's slimline for people with thin hands, so you can get good grip on it. And also, it has a very low profile, so a lot of people that do appendix carry will carry this. But for a home defense weapon, it's also great because you can pick it up. It handles well. It doesn't have a whole lot of snappy recoil, but it recoils because it's light and it's in 9mm, and it's not a full-size handgun. And the smaller you get, the more compact you get, the more recoil you're going to have with the weapon. But for a home defense, this isn't bad because it doesn't have hardly any overpenetration, or the risk of overpenetration with hollow points would not give you that much of a concern. A 9mm round, of course, looks like this, and it's not bad. And most folks are going to use the hollow point version over a full metal jacket. However, the actual answer to that question, which is the best home defense weapon, would be a 12 gauge pump shotgun, a personal defense pump shotgun. Why? Because one of the factor of pumping it, and then the reliability, because a lot of folks will prefer maybe a semi-automatic, but just remember, if you put low recoil rounds in a semi-automatic shotgun, then you're going to have a problem if it doesn't cycle well, because there's not enough inertia from that round to blow back to sufficiently cycle the next round. In a pump shotgun, you don't have to worry about that. Because it's more mechanical, there's less opportunity for failure in a pump shotgun. Number one, a 12 gauge is an excellent platform to use, but if your hands don't or can't handle the recoil of a 12 gauge, a good 20 gauge will do the same thing. So a 20 gauge shotgun is also an excellent home defense weapon. It is not much of over penetration that you have to worry about, and it's good for close quarter. The other thing about a shotgun, especially a 12 gauge shotgun, is the double-aught buck. You have 9 pellets that you're putting on a target at one time. So when you look at the double-aught buck pellets, you'll notice that they are about the same diameter as a 9mm. That's why a lot of law enforcement agencies, when they went from the shotgun being in the patrol vehicles, they went to a 9mm carbine, because they figured, hey, we can pull the trigger 9 times and be more precise than a shotgun would with the blast. But that's what makes the shotgun more of a more desirable home defense weapon, because you're putting 9 pellets that's the size of a 9mm round or 9mm bullet, about the same diameter. You're putting 9 of them on a target at one time. The 12 gauge shotgun double-aught buck is traveling at a little over 1,200 feet per second. Now, a 9mm, most of their rounds travel at about that same speed, between 1,100, 1,150 to 1,200 to 1,250 feet per second. So you're getting the same velocity in the travel of the projectiles. However, the terminal ballistics of that in the shotgun is going to weigh a little heavier than the 9mm. Now you're going to get more distance with that 9mm, so you're going to be able to shoot farther with the 9mm pistol, relatively speaking, depending on what type of pistol it is. But that shotgun will still get out, some of them out to about 100 yards as well. So the shotgun is extremely effective, or can be extremely effective, as a home defense. A lot of folks will use it as a truck gun. It's versatile and varies in different platforms. It's just a good all-around defense weapon to have in your home. So if you were going to use a 9mm, you have to pull the trigger 9 times to get 9 rounds downrange. And if you have a limited magazine capacity, let's say 10 in a Glock 43X, or even if you had 2 15-round magazines, that's 30 rounds. So you have to pull that trigger at least 15 times and then reload. In that 12 gauge shotgun, one pull is 9 of these. And then a second pull, you get 18. That exceeds already right there the magazine capacity of a single magazine in a 9mm. So the 12 gauge has its advantages. Now, there's another weapon alternative, which a lot of people have gone through too, which is the 300 blackout. And a 300 blackout weapon is another home defense alternative that a lot of people are using. Close quarter weapon, excellent truck gun. A lot of folks prefer the 300 blackout because the 300 blackout fires a 30 caliber projectile, but it also fits in the 5.56 cartridge, and it fits in the 5.56 magazines. So you get a larger capacity with this than you do with a 12 gauge shotgun or even a pistol. You have to remember that most handguns, really, because they're generally underpowered, a handgun is to fight your way to a rifle or a shotgun, and more appropriately is to fight your way to a rifle depending on what the situation is. But in a home defense situation, a 300 blackout would do you just fine, and a handgun would also be sufficient enough in power to help defend you in your home should somebody try to get in there on you, or you just need to feel safe inside. This is good for a nightstand. A lot of folks like the pistols because, it's convenient. If I need to take it somewhere, I can. Yeah, if you're going to travel around with it, you absolutely should get the handgun. There's nothing wrong with having both. I like to have multiple weapons in the house because if you have just one type of weapon and a bad guy comes into a part of the house where you got to get past him to get to where your defense weapons are or your defense weapon is, then you're going to have a problem. But if you have multiple weapons around the house, no matter where you are, if somebody comes in at whatever entry point they are, you don't have to get through the assailant in order to defend yourself. And so you have to think about those things when those kind of situations come up. A lot of people like the 300 blackout round when in comparison to these, because if you look at the 300 blackout round in comparison to the 9mm round, in comparison to what you're going to get in a shotgun and a double-aught buck, remember this shotgun round will travel over 1,200 feet per second, and it's going to go out to that 100 over 100 feet. Now, if you use the 300 blackout, you're going to have more terminal velocity with this because you got a 30 caliber bullet on here, and of course you got more powder or more propellant that's pushing that round down range, but you're also firing it from a carbine size weapon. And that 300 blackout is designed for close quarter defense, and they're also excellent truck guns. Just remember though, whatever you have, you want to be able to practice with it, to be comfortable with it. The other thing about certain handguns that people don't realize is how they operate and how you're going to perform with it if something really does happen. For example, I've been a law enforcement officer for 32 years. I served as a chief deputy. I served as a police chief in a couple of different jurisdictions, and I was served as a street officer for a very long time before I became a police administrator and investigator. However, one of the things that you need to consider when you're purchasing a handgun, like SIG is also a very popular weapon that folks use. But a lot of folks like safeties on their weapons. They'll buy weapons with all these little protrusions that are out here. Notice that a Glock, which some people like and some people don't, are a lot cleaner. Well, the reason that this is important is because a lot of folks like firearms that have manual safeties on them. So just put the safety on, you put the safety off. But in a life-threatening critical situation, and unless you practice with this all the time, you're going to have to remember if the safety is on or off, especially if there's no markings on it to let you know that. But one of the first things that erodes in a life-threatening situation where your adrenaline is going are your fine motor skills. And to move a safety, as simple as that seems, in a controlled environment, one of the first things that's going to go is that fine motor skill, because you're going to pick up the firearm and you're going to just want to pull the trigger and it's going to fail to perform. And then you're going to have to think about why isn't this thing working? And then you go to tap, rack, bang, and all of that, and you're going through this drill of trying to remember what to do next. When as, for example, with the Glock, where the safety is built into the trigger, there are no external mechanisms out here to try to remember when your fine motor skills go out of the window. If you practice enough to remember draw and fire, when you draw and fire, fingers on the trigger, you squeeze it back, the round goes down range. So there's nothing wrong with a lot of these other weapons, but whatever you have, especially if you prefer them to have these external safeties and mechanisms and other little, cute little things that make the gun look cool and all of that, make sure you understand how those things operate should they fail. But also remember that in a critical threat situation, your fine motor skills are also going to be greatly diminished. Just like people that close one eye to shoot, I guarantee you that in a life-threatening situation, your brain and your adrenaline are not going to let you close one eye. In a threat situation, it's, oh crap, your eyes are taking in as much light and information as possible. You're not going to have the ability to close one eye to do anything. So as you practice and develop your skills in self-defense and you go out and practice, you need to learn to also practice shooting with both eyes open. If you haven't had an instructor to teach you how to do that, then you need to find another instructor that will. Because in real life situations, I mean, we need to play the way that we train, because you're going to really revert back to your training whenever a critical situation comes. That's why when cops were using revolvers way back in the day, they used to train them that when they fired a course of fire, they would pick up the brass and put it in a pocket. Well, then they started finding cops shot dead with spent rounds in their pocket, because in a critical shoot situation, their brain was trained that, okay, after I fire, I got to pick up this brass and put it in my pocket. Bad deal. Whatever you practice or however you practice is the way you're going to really respond when something really does happen. So it's important that you remember those things. And as your skills develop, then do more complex shooting. Start shooting where the target is actually moving, or where you're moving around, and don't get so locked into, I'm standing in this weaver stance, or I'm standing in this modified stance, or I'm in this bladed stance, and I'm shooting at a paper target that's just standing there waiting for me to shoot it. Because in real life, threats don't stand still, they move, and most of the time they're firing back. I'll see you on the next video.